Hi! Have you been wondering what it's like to travel to Barbados during this COVID pandemic? Then this video is for you. Hey guys, this is your girl Dianita and welcome to my channel Barbados Matters, where we check out the sights and discuss the issues. Currently I'm in Enterprise on the south coast, overlooking the beautiful Miami Beach. So today I'm going to interview a few people who recently travelled to Barbados, and they're going to give you a first-hand account of their experiences. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome Dr. Tony Raven, who's in Cambridge, the United Kingdom, and Ali Saar, who is in London. So we're going to be talking today regarding your trip to Barbados. So I want to start with you, Dr. Raven. Thanks for joining me. Tell us a little bit about your experience, first of all, when you were coming to Barbados, and when you arrived here, what your experience was like at the airport and to the point when you got to your hotel.
Well, thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you, and we thoroughly enjoyed our time in Barbados, I have to say. I think the most difficult part was actually getting our test in the UK, because at that time there was a great pressure on testing labs, and it was in its infancy. But now, today, that's a lot better. You can get tests at any airport prior to flying. But arrival was fine. We were very well processed through the airport, through the immigration process, went off to the Crane Hotel, along with a number of others, where we were to isolate. That wasn't such a good experience. I don't think the hotel was actually our best experience, but it was what it was.
So when you say in terms of the experience, what, just elaborate on that. What do you mean?
Well, I think we were confined to our own area and room with bands, and that side of it was fine. But actually, the quality of the room, the food that we had access to, and the responsiveness of the reception to anything that we needed, because we couldn't go and do it ourselves, was left something to be desired, shall I say.
Okay. And what about you, Ali? What was the experience like for you up to the point where you were at your quarantine hotel? What was that like?
I concur with Dr. Tony Raven. I do feel that it's very well processed and thought through. So even before you've actually stepped foot on into the actual foyer or into immigration, you were greeted by two doctors who would double check on your certification. The only thing I would say about travel is that as much as we've all been tested and whatever else, we still were crammed into a bus to be taken to our hotel.
To the hotel, okay.
Yeah, we were still crammed into a bus to be taken to the hotel. I think the driver should have been wearing PPE at the time, but he wasn't. So that could have been checked. But other than that...
And this is how long ago? You travelled to Barbados when?
I think that was October of 2020. We went through the second form of lockdown in the United Kingdom, so we had to adhere to the Barbados changing its rules 24 hours before we arrived. So we had to go into quarantine.
Yeah, because things have moved along since then.
Yes.
So Dr. Raven, you would have said then, obviously you would have been tested. How quickly afterwards were you tested once you got to Barbados, and when you got to your hotel, how quickly were you tested?
I was tested the next day, so within 24 hours, and got the results back very rapidly thereafter.
Okay, and tell us about that result. What happened then?
That was quite a surprise, because having tested negative just before we came out, I tested positive. So we were immediately confined. I was confined to the room while they sent an ambulance to take me up to Harrison Point. And then there's a little bit of the walk of shame out to the ambulance, because everyone's obviously interested to see who's got it and who's been taken out to the ambulance. But they put you in the ambulance and then drive you. It's about half an hour drive up to Harrison Point.
Okay.
Not the most comfortable drive in the ambulance. It's not really set out for people to be as taxi passengers, but It is what it is.
And unfortunately, you probably didn't see the scenery as you were going along either.
No, that was part of the problem because the windows were all blanked out. You are being thrown around a bit in the back, and you've got no visual references to a little bit of motion sickness in the back.
So we're hearing a lot about Harrison's Point, so it'd be good to hear a little bit about your experience at Harrison's Point.
I think sort of it was, given the circumstances, it was actually a very good experience. I think Dr. Ford and his team there are fantastic. You're well looked after. So when you arrive and checked in, first thing you get is a big bag of stuff. So you get soap and washing, toothpaste, toothbrush, snacks and things like that, all handed over to you for when you first arrive. It's quite a big facility with quite a lot of capacity there. I don't know how it is now, but when I was there with 15 people, it was quite empty. Right. And there was, so I had my own private room effectively, and you get really good medical care. They come and check up on you regularly. They come and clean out the room, again, for institutional food, for those of us who are used to hospital food, it wasn't actually, it was pretty good food as well.
Pretty good. We got. Good. So the facility itself, was okay.
It was okay, yeah. I mean, it's not ideal. It's no worse than any other hospital. But with the real bonus that there's a big deck out there and you can sit out, and although it's got fencing around it, you can sit out in the sunshine looking out to sea. I mean, there's lots worse places to stay.
Absolutely. So that's good. That's good to hear, because obviously we're hearing a lot of different, perspectives. And us on the outside, we will hear various things. So it's good to hear from somebody firsthand, in terms of the facility and obviously the treatment that you've got. And then obviously you were released at some point and then able to continue on your holiday. How long did you stay for after that?
Well, actually, having lost a week to that, delayed the departure, so we had the full 2-week holiday thereafter.
Oh, wonderful. So you moved from the Crane and went elsewhere?
Yeah, we rented a place looking out to sea and down in Oystons, and yeah, we had a fabulous time. It's a great community there.
Wonderful.
So going out to the fish market and just sitting on the beach and joining everyone in the morning when they all, whole community seems to sit in the water and chat.
Right.
Really friendly. It's a lovely experience there.
Excellent. Wonderful. And Ali, what about you? You would have taken your second test, as we call it here in Barbados. So once you arrived at your quarantine hotel, you were tested. And tell us about that. Tell us about your experience having had that second test.
So with my second test, the person I was traveling at the time with, they tested positive. So obviously, as I was a partner of the person I was traveling with, then therefore I had to, they went off to Harrison Point and then I had to stay in the hotel room. So I then could not leave my room. I had to wait for room service, and I did feel isolated, most definitely. The only good thing was the weather was great and I had a little balcony. I did feel uncomfortable in part because I felt lonely, because imagine you've planned for a few months to travel with somebody and all of a sudden the person you're meant to be with has now gone and you don't know when they may return. Right. So I felt like I was in the world of the abyss, as it were. It was quite scary at one point initially, but I got over it. Thank God for communication, a good Wi-Fi. And yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. I was more fearful for my partner at the time as opposed to for myself. What I will say, it was quite interesting to find that the room door was alarmed. A couple of times I did trigger the alarm, and a couple of times security did come to the room and check that I was okay. I was also warned that if I leave the room, I am risking it's the form of safety for the others, let alone myself. So especially if I do stay in the room. This was verbally told to myself on one occasion out of the two.
Right.
So I found that quite interesting that their room was alarmed based on me opening the door.
Right.
Overall, I was treated well. They came to the door, they delivered the food, they delivered anything I asked for, technically they would. However, they weren't very good at answering the phone. So if I was really ill, they wouldn't have answered the phone. That's the only thing I would say about that particular hotel. Other than that, yeah. The quarantine process, it's when you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
That's the thing you can't get over. But when you reflect and look back at what you went through, it was doable. It really is. It's just that you're out of your comfort zone. How do you manage? But you do manage.
I'm sure you would have heard about various people coming out to Barbados and breaking quarantine.
Yes.
You know, what do you guys feel about that?
I'm pretty
Inexcusable.
disappointed.
Inexcusable.
Yeah, and I am pretty disappointed because we're going through a hard time here. As much as they need to relax when they get to the other side, they still need to understand this is a worldwide pandemic. So then, therefore, rules still have to be adhered to, whatever country you go to.
Absolutely.
You know, and I still reflect in my mind, what spins around in my mind is that Barbados only has a population of under 500,000 people. And it only takes
actually under 300,000. Actually, under 300,000.
A tiny island, a fraction of the number in London. So then, therefore, the ignorance of some it blows my mind. Right. And so I'm really deeply disappointed.
Barbados should be firm on this because, I mean, the reason we chose Barbados was because of the way it handles it, the very low infection rates it has, and it obviously handles it excellently. That's one of the big reasons for coming. And if that gets broken, then I think it loses a lot of its attraction.
The numbers have risen because of the fact that we would have had persons break quarantine, which obviously would have caused it to spread. And even in terms of local population not adhering to the protocols. I think, you know, in Barbados, we became in this very happy bubble because we had very few cases, just 1 or 2, you know, per day maybe. And that's caused at this moment in time for it to skyrocket. So how do you feel when you hear now that since you came and went, that at this moment in time, you know, the numbers are considerably larger than when you were here? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's disappointing, but it's still a lot lower than most places. And certainly London at the moment, it's estimated 1 person in 20 is currently infected. And I think what the people who break quarantine don't realise, a lot of people don't realise, is that you can have no symptoms whatsoever and still be infective. And that's the big challenge. That's why we need to stick with the rules.
Right. And in essence, what do you think in terms of the government of Barbados? Do you think that they have continued to do a good job? Any suggestions? What's your opinion in terms of how things are being dealt with?
Well, I think things have moved on a lot since we came out, and it's changing all the time. But I think it was handled very well. At the time, our biggest problem was getting our test before we flew, and in fact, we missed the first flight because they didn't come back in time. But that was of the moment, and that was nothing that Barbados could do anything about. The rest of it, I think, went very smoothly, and the stay at Harrison Point was very good.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I would perhaps say, for a lot of people in Harrison Point, it was actually quite a shock and a struggle for them to come to terms with. So a couple of things I would suggest. One is if you're coming out to Barbados, be prepared that this might happen to you, and if you are going there, it has really good high-speed Wi-Fi, so do take your devices so you can stay in touch with people, and talk to friends and family about where you are and how you're feeling. And I think that's probably the one side that Harrison Point could look at a little more, which is actually the mental well-being of the people who've suddenly had this shock revelation that they are infected. And when you have it, you don't know how it's going to go for you. You hope it will go well, but we also know it does go very badly, and there's little you can do to choose which course you're on. So I think, a little more help on helping people come to terms with it.
And I think from my end, one of the issues I think is for those that are asymptomatic, because you know, they're there and they feel good, but obviously they're confined, and I think that's some of the challenges I think that they have been having at Harrison's Point.
Yeah, well, I was totally asymptomatic throughout until I had 2 negative tests.
I think the government should continue what they're doing as long as they're upfront and explaining what is actually going on based on numbers, figures and facts. We do it here. We probably do it once a week, whereas Barbados, I think they tend to do it probably on a daily basis, which is really good. And then they have speakers from different divisions in the healthcare, etc. Yeah. The communication, I feel, is good, especially when it releases who's arrived, age group and where they've gone through.
Our government, I think they've been very good when it comes to
100%.
You know, to hopefully allay fears, but also I think it's important for people so that we understand what's out there and the risks, you know, that we're exposed to at this moment in time. So
that's right. You know, as much as you're giving them a communication and everything else, the flip side is what will happen is if you drum this into the local community's head on a daily basis, then they will also look at the tourists in a different light, which can be damaging in the long term. And how can you get the community to still be safe around the tourists, but be aware of them and not push them away?
Yeah.
Because if you push them away, then you're pushing away your money.
And that's the fundamental thing. You know, tourism is, you know, what we depend on. We rely on tourists to come. And I think we continue to welcome tourists. However, you know, it's normal for there to be some fear within reason.
Within reason.
But I totally get what you're saying. And again, the government of Barbados, they never shut the borders. They've never stopped tourists from coming. Even through the lockdowns, actually, the borders was never shut. But obviously that is a concern for locals in terms of tourists, you know, come in. And but as you said, I do think in terms of attitudes and that towards tourists, you know, can be, you know, because it's out of fear.
That's right.
Yeah.
Out of fear.
But I have to say, my experience was everyone was very welcoming. I saw none of that whatsoever.
Good.
Everyone was very welcoming. They'd be happy to talk to you, help you.
Okay.
I think the whistle-blowing culture might come about.
Okay.
I've noticed that Sandals has been revoked with regards to their license of being a quarantine hotel. I think these are important things that people should be aware of. You know, you can't just come over and whatever else. Even your hotel has to stand by the rules as well as you as a tourist. And I think that sends out a message. And for it to be revoked, sends out a serious message.
I think, you know, because of the breaking of the protocols and the lapse in terms of securities, you know, we have persons also that have been in private villas and have been able to abscond from there.
Yeah.
So, you know, the security is going to be beefed up. And I'm sure you would have heard about persons from England, you know, having been fined. We had one person that was unable to pay a fine and was imprisoned. So the sentences, you know, are there. As
and they're stiff sentences.
Stiff sentences in terms of fines. So we would hope that going forward that persons coming out would abide. And,
send out that message.
Yeah. So in closing, I just want to find out from both of you whether you would be interested in coming back to Barbados in any time soon with respect to all what's happening and the developments.
My point of view, hands down, all day. If I could come tomorrow, I would. If I could get on a plane, I'd be there tomorrow, 100%.
And you would be interested, if you could, to do the 12-month welcome stamp, possibly?
100%. I'm trying to make a way of that happening as we speak, because when we are allowed to fly down, I want to be on the first plane out of here.
And you, Dr. Raven, would you consider coming back to Barbados?
Absolutely. I think I would have been back already. The only thing holding me back is I want to get my vaccination here in the UK. First of all, and since I need to be available at relatively short notice for that, I just have to stay here until that's done. But as soon as I've got that, I'll be over.
Wonderful.
Like a shot.
So you would have heard from Dr. Raven and Ali Saar, who travelled to Barbados during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whilst I acknowledge that their experiences may differ from other persons, particularly those who came in the last few weeks and were impacted by the significant increase in COVID-19 cases and the unfortunate effect that that would have had on the testing system at the time. Dr. Raven and Ali Sa, however, have given Barbados a passing grade on the handling of the COVID-19 situation. So much so that they anticipate on returning to Barbados long term as soon as possible. My takeaway is that if you're going to travel to Barbados during these times, it's important that you come prepared, not only financially, but emotionally as well, in case of any eventuality. So guys, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and leave your comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.